lovely clap. Welcome to Alpha Book Club. I'm Rachel Heine, and joining me is Hector Navarro.
Sup, I like books.
Woo! Maud is in Australia, scaling the cliffs of insanity. We miss her dearly. We can't wait to hear what she thought of the next section. Welcome to our Alpha community. We're so happy you could join us. Thank you guys for tweeting and showing us your wine that we hope is not poisoned with iocane powder and all your books. This month we're reading The Princess Bride by William Goldman. We had such a fun discussion last week. It's been really, I think, interesting to see how strongly everyone feels about this because of the film. So let's get into it. Hector, where did we leave off last week?
The first part of this book that we read was, and this is the illustrated version, and this is also I think the 30th anniversary.
Yes.
So there's like an extra forward by William Goldman. And I got tricked. I straight up got tricked with this
Maud
opening
was
because
pissed.
You were pissed.
No, Maud was
Maud
pissed.
was furious. She threw a book. She threw a fit.
She threw the book like 3 times.
She threw it like 3 times. And in the first part of this introduction, Goldman is pretending, and I didn't realize this until I kind of did some research and realized, like, oh, this is The Princess Bride, and it's really brilliant, but I didn't realize it. But he's pretending to be himself, William Goldman, recounting the story that he was read by his father called The Princess Bride, written by S. Morgenstern, this fictional writer that he created up from the fictional country of Florin. All of this stuff was all a fiction. And we got duped. I think Maud and I got duped. And it took a while. And not only that, but the guy himself, his character that he takes on is a successful Hollywood screenwriter. He's a successful Hollywood screenwriter. And he's the worst because he lays it on thick with, like, I was at a swimming pool with this beautiful young starlet and I needed to call my wife and have her find a copy of S. Morgenstern's book to give to my son because I was an absentee father. He didn't even have a son in real life. There's all these different things where it's just like, it made me not on board with this character. And I think we compared it to, you see the movie and it's freaking Columbo. Like, it's the grandfather character is so warm and so inviting and immediately gets you on board with the idea of, like, you know, especially because I think it happened in this section, in the second section, we'll get to it later, but the part in the movie where he interrupts and he goes, she does not get eaten by the eels at this point, is the sweetest moment where Peter Falk is like, I just wanted to tell you, like, you seemed like you were nervous, you know, and Fred Savage is like, I wasn't nervous, and he's holding onto that blanket, like, but that little interruption, that moment is in the book, in the second section that we read, and it's essentially beat for beat the same moment. So I'm like, okay, this character, this narrator, I like this guy. He's a sweet guy. But it's probably because I'm imprinting Peter Falk's Columbo, you know, grandfather character. So that was the first section. And in the first section, we learn about the premise of, again, this fictional character, William Goldman, taking this author, S. Morgenstern, who came from Florin, and just doing the good parts. Taking the good parts and writing this book for his son so that he could have the same experience that he had when his father read it to him, but also cut out all the boring stuff. So there's a brilliant chapter where it's like, and then here's 30 pages of them getting ready for a wedding, but it's not important, so let's just go right to the next section. But in the first section, we meet Princess Buttercup. Not a princess yet, rather. Poor person Buttercup with her poor parents. Peasant Buttercup. It's like the difference between homeless and bum. At one point, the United States kind of stopped using the word bum. Yeah. They're like, it's insensitive. It's all the
same thing.
Homeless. It
still sucks no matter what you call it.
It's bad. So they are
tragic.
The economically challenged Buttercup and family. And we learn that she's one of the most beautiful women ever born. And we also meet Wesley, the farm boy. But in this version, which is a little bit longer than the few minutes intro that the movie has, we learned that Buttercup wasn't maybe really interested in Wesley until other women in the town were interested in him because he was kind of getting hotter and a little bit older and, like, he's a young, sexy teenager. So we kind of learn more about her character, and she sort of has, like, word diarrhea, and it's not that great moment in the film where it's like they knew instantaneously that they loved each other, and she realized that every time he said "as you wish," he was really saying "I love you," like, and then she said it back, like, and it's really, really sweet. So in the book, it's a little more awkward.
Yeah.
And she professes his love for him, and he just, like, closes the door on her for a comedic moment and decides, I have to go to America to get my fortune so that I can provide for you. And then the character dies. And then there's more time spent building up the count, who is obsessed with his zoo of death and his ailing father, and we kind of just get more of that background information. And then from there, he goes and asks Buttercup for her hand in marriage. She's like, "I'll never love you," and he's like, "I wouldn't want it if I had it. Let's just get over this. Let's just get this thing over with, or I'll kill you." She's like, "Okay, you can go ahead and marry me." And then I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
For section 1.
That was great.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I hated the narrator when I was reading it. But as I've gotten into the second section, which we'll be talking about today, shortly, I really felt like it makes sense because a lot of this is a commentary on loyalty, on greed. You kind of look at, in the second section, looking at the prince and looking at the story about the mysterious six-fingered man, which if we've seen the film, we know who that is. But
Yep.
in this, it's the six-fingered man who's part of the nobility, and you see that they get away with anything and they are kind of terrible people. And I think that William Goldman, who at this time had been working in Hollywood for a really long time, is in that intro. When I was reading this, I was like, is he just picking the shittiest guy that he sees at every party and every event that's like hanging out with models by the pool and treating his wife like garbage, even though she seems really smart and cool, and he's just a shitty dad, and
I did not even make that connection,
Yeah.
Rachel. That's brilliant. I'm really glad we're doing the show because I did not even make the connection that the whole book, The Princess Bride, is a commentary on his experience in Hollywood being a screenwriter, with the type of people that he's dealing with what people get away with the nobility, and that whole thing.
And people who think they're really clever
Yeah.
and who have a certain skill and they band together with other people to make some, like, it just felt like when we get into
Dang.
this section a little bit, it felt a little like, and I think it could be anything, right? Anything where there's like a hierarchy and
For sure.
it's not necessarily based on merit as much as popularity or some sort of arbitrary
know.
rule system.
Nepotism.
Yeah.
Oh wow! We're describing Hollywood at this point.
Yeah, or wealth. Yeah, all of
Or
those things.
wealth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so-
Last week we said we said a wealthy person who was raised being wealthy from birth turns out not a great leader. That's what we said.
Yeah.
That's what that book was saying.
Super
Who'd have thunk it?
Weird. It's
Not a man
like
of the
that's
people.
Rolling, yeah. But then I agree. I don't think any of us really loved the way that Buttercup was introduced, and I
Sure.
still feel like I love the comedic elements of this, and
and
but
there's
there
some great
isn't.
stuff.
It's really funny, and especially in this section, which is one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yes.
Is all of this sort of the chase between the man in black leading through to Vicini
great.
and then into the fire swamp.
It's great.
That's a really like darkly comedic section.
Yeah.
But the sweetness that we get a little bit of it with the narrator, but especially in the beginning and in the romance that's in the film, I don't think that that's here. And so when you have Buttercup's introduction like that, I feel like you lose that. That's the key change for me, is that like that you actually do believe in true love even as you're like skewering it.
Yeah.
You know?
Lady Amphi says, and this is an interesting comment, Lady Amphi in the Alpha Chat says, I was lucky that I've seen the movie years ago, so I remember the scenes, but not the voices saying the lines. Oh, I feel like you're unlucky.
Yeah,
I feel like you're
heard
unlucky.
I heard
Andre the Giant. I mean,
and the dialogue in this
Yes.
section is like a lot of it's word for word.
yeah, a lot of it is.
Or their
Except
internal monologue.
One of my favorite lines was in the book given to a different character, and in the movie it's given
Is
to
it
to
every
Dread
when
Pirate
they're
Roberts.
selling
Yeah, which is
something?
great. But I'm
Yeah.
like, well, they kept that line. It's such
Yeah.
a great line.
Yeah.
It's I gotta find it. It's hang on. I think I have it
Yeah.
right here. I think I grabbed it. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, hang on. Give me a second. Okay, we're talking about. Oh man, this part's so good. We're talking about Fezzik and his mother and father, and let's see. Oh no. Okay. Well, we'll keep talking, Rachel. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find this line.
There's a great comment up there about, I don't know, right above Lady Amphi that says, right above. Thierry says, reading the book, imagining Robin Wright as Claire Underwood instead of Buttercup changed the full dynamic of the story. That's great. I would watch that crossover. I've loved Robin Wright since Princess Bride,
Yeah.
and I've always thought she's so cool, and she's so amazing on House of Cards, and I kind of love
She's having a good year.
I feel like House of Cards is much like Game of Thrones, you see the women ending up in these positions of power. I feel like House of Cards is like a backdoor story really about her.
Female.
And same thing with Better Call Saul. There's all these really great stories that are doing that. But then in Wonder Woman 2,
best part of the movie.
I mean, I saw it again this past weekend.
Yeah.
And there's a moment, and I could talk forever about Wonder Woman, and that's not this show. But there's a moment that you don't, the way that movie is shot, that you don't get to see a lot of. You don't get to see a lot of action scenes with women filmed by women or love, all these things. But the action scene that really got me was Robin Wright riding into battle with a smile on her face.
Yes.
Looking so excited. And I was like, God! Like, I just wanted to, like, charge out of the theater.
It's awesome.
Did you find it?
I found the line, Java Pagiko, you're right. It is a line from Fezzik's mother in these flashbacks. We get a flashback of Fezzik's backstory and his upbringing, as well as Inigo's. And the Inigo section is my favorite part of the book. And I'll just say, overall, this second section, I feel like, for me, has like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Justified its existence.
Yes.
The book has justified its existence.
Even though the movie's based on this.
Because even though the first section, even after reading the first section, I still really, really enjoy reading this book overall. Really, really enjoy it. But I am considering it a companion piece to the film. I love the movie so much that I'm thinking about, if and when I have a kid someday, I'm going to put the movie on, and then afterwards, I'm going to read this to them for a month. I'm going to read a chapter a night. Like and I'll do the voices, and it'll just be like the director's cut. It's like so that I'm so excited about. But the second section where we actually get to see Inigo's father was like awesome.
That you hear about, but you don't get. Yeah, I know.
I was so excited. I'm like, oh, are we doing this? We're doing this. So we get to Fezzik's section, and you're right, Java Bukikiro. Fezzik's mother says, "Life is pain." His mother said, "Anybody that says different is selling something."
It's a great line, but
it's such a great line.
The Man in Black says it in.
And it's fine.
He says it to Buttercup.
He says it to
later
Buttercup
in a later section. Yeah.
And talking a little bit, if we could just go back a bit about Buttercup, Wesley, how Buttercup's portrayed in the book versus the movie. I feel like, because I rewatched the movie recently, you haven't yet.
I was going to, but I didn't.
It's okay.
But I'm going to wait until I'm done.
Okay, great.
And I'm gonna have so much fun, and I'm gonna just get snacks. And
it's gonna be great.
I wish I could fast forward.
Now, I want to pose a question to the chat and to you as well, Rachel.
Okay.
Maybe I'm seeing something that's not there, but I feel like even the movie itself, even the beginning, at least on paper, like the way that Buttercup and Wesley are written, it's still very tongue-in-cheek. It's still very cynical. It's not like real. But I'm not kidding you. The performances of Cary Elwes and Robin Wright make them so like genuine that you buy that it's such a great love. Because really, what the movie's doing, what the writing's doing, it's nothing that is.
I just got chills looking at that.
Look at that, because it's like, look at them, look at him, because they're selling it.
And it's like you can look at that. You can feel it.
Oh my God,
it's too much.
That's like the most handsome man in the world. That's so great. Look at Rob. Look at that. And it's like that, all of that on paper, it still is, it's like this. It's very shortcut. It's very like, let's just get to the thing and the end of the love story. And the movie, for me, it like really finds itself as soon as we have, I'm forgetting the actor's name who plays Vicini.
Oh, yes.
As soon as we have that actor. Say that again?
Yes,
Wally Shawn. As soon as Wally and the gang shows up, I think the Princess Bride
the teacher
movie,
from Clueless.
AKA Rex from Toy Story.
Oh yeah.
As soon as they show up, the movie's like, this is what this movie is. It is a super funny, irreverent, like character actor showcase, And it's so great. And I think that once these scenes start to happen, the Princess Bride, the movie, becomes a Princess Bride. Everything before it for me is like, it's still very generic on purpose. It's still very classical, and then these characters, and then the eel, and then the grandpa, and then everything from there. I'm like, I'm so sold. But I think that the movie still has a lot of that cynicism of the greatest love story. Like we only think it's the greatest love story because we grew up watching this as children.
Yeah.
And because we've seen the movie over and over and over again, and because, most importantly, Cary and Robin kill it. So is that just me? Do you guys think that could be possible as well? I'm trying to give the book more credit. I'm trying not to say like, oh, the movie knew that they were going to be really lovey-dovey, and I'm saying like it's still kind of there.
I think maybe also we maybe get to that at the end of the book more, and maybe that's really powerful. And so when he looked back on it, I definitely think it's part of the performances. I think it's partially the age that you saw the film.
Totally.
Which is a really great way to segue into our Skype guest
Yay!
who's joining us. I'm so excited to talk about this because I love talking to people who see a movie that I loved as a kid when they're an adult, and it's just it blows your mind. So joining us this week is someone who just saw The Princess Bride, the film, for the first time ever. And that's totally fine. We're excited. So you know him as Thrash Odin. Let's welcome Paul and get our little headsets in.
Yay,
or you already
Paul.
have yours in, but I don't. So
Are you there, Thrash Odin?
Yeah, I'm right here. How's it going, guys?
Oh my gosh, so good. Thank you so much for calling in and talking with us, Paul. So right off the bat, what are your impressions of you just saw the movie The Princess Bride from 1987 for the first time last night. What did you think? And be honest, be brutally honest. It's totally okay. You're in a safe space.
Okay. I really like the movie. I probably would have liked it more when I was a kid because that movie's perfect for children because the movie just starts and then it just goes and then you almost immediately hit the Sicilian and all that stuff. But I think deep down prefer the book.
Really? Well, we got to unpack that, Paul. Why is that? Why do you prefer the book as an adult? And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you exactly? Like, how old are you right now?
I'm almost 30. I was born in 1987.
Same. Cool. Same. So you're same age as me, 29.
Me too.
So you prefer the book more. Let us know why.
Okay, so, and it might be just me because I read a lot of scholarly editions and translations. So this book feels like a meta commentary on scholarly editions and stuff like that. Yeah. Where they're always making these references and they usually have an opening like this book has, where it's the guy who does the abridgment talking about his life, which is something you don't even want to read and kind of makes the book worse.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I never would have thought of that. That's awesome.
Really funny. It's really funny because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I love that approach you're taking, Paul, because if you read a lot of scholarly editions, this is absolutely making fun of that stuff, and that vibe is not in the movie at all. Like we're saying, the grandfather framing device in the movie is really sweet and it's really earnest, and I really buy into it and I love it. So there's not that well, here's the thing you got to know about S. Morgenstern is there's a bunch of political commentary and I traveled here to get this. That's not in the movie because it's not in the movie. It's not part of it. So
I feel like if you were to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but since you are the expert, but I kind of feel like if you were to, sometimes when you adapt from a book to a film, either there's three avenues. One, it's good, which is rare. Two, it doesn't stick as close to the original source material as fans would like, so they get really pissed off, which is they're two different mediums, so what can you do? Or they stick way too close to the source material and then it drags on. I feel like if you were to do that and to stick really closely to this, you'd have someone writing at their desk or something. You'd have this kind of full of himself, maybe not a movie guy because it is
they're making
skewering this scholarly thing, but maybe you'd make him a professor or something like that. And so what do you think though?
I mean one of the things that I like about the movie the most I like the parts of the movies that I like the most are the parts that I've already read because I feel like those parts are a commentary on movie adaptations in general that you do cut off the part about Buttercup being the most beautiful woman in the world and just immediately they're in love and then immediately skips upon that. But I would if this was a regular Hollywood adaptation, you would probably have it be a professor and keep the grandioseness of The Princess Bride and focus more on I forget S. Morgenstern.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like you said it perfectly, Paul. This movie is perfect for kids. The movie's perfect for kids. The book, I don't think is a kid's book. I think the book is for adults.
Yeah.
I think the book is for adults who grew up reading fantasy and these types of stories. So they're having a laugh when they're reading William Goldman do his spin on it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a parody of these kinds of genres of fairy tales and
where you have descriptions of like the sorry Lord of the Rings fans, but in Lord of the Rings it's just like endless descriptions of mountains and dwarves who all have the same name.
Tolkien said he was doing that shit on purpose. Tolkien said, I kid you not, I read the introduction for Lord of the Rings the first time I read it.
I've never finished it.
I'm in the middle of Two Towers. Maybe we should do that as a book one of these months. But I remember his intro. Tolkien was like, listen, I wrote The Hobbit.
I love
it
The
was
Hobbit.
fun. It was fast. A lot of the people that grew up reading The Hobbit as children were now like in their 20s, so I wanted to write something for them. I wanted to see how much I could get away with just like floofy-doofy descriptive language. Like he says it in the introduction.
That's infuriating.
He was like, I wanted to see basically how much of this I could write before having to stop myself and kind of getting back to the story, which is why I think Tom Bombadil sucks. Tom Bombadil sucks. He's the worst. I'm so glad they cut him out of the movie. But anyway.
You're absolutely right.
Rachel, to go off of what you're saying earlier, I feel the same thing happens with comic book adaptations. It happens all the time. It's either better than the better than the original source material, not as good because it strays too far, or not as good because it strays too close. Sometimes when they make changes for comic book movies, like at the end of Watchmen, there's no squid. I'm fine with it. I get it. I'm like, I get it. It's I get it. So, but talking to Paul, like, just real quick, based off of the movie, who is your favorite character?
Oh, that's so rough. But, I mean, Andre the Giant is so sweet.
Yeah.
And he's sweeter as physic, his performance is sweeter than he is even in the book.
Yes.
And like I remember I watched an interview where apparently the guy that was playing the Sicilian, the actor is super afraid of heights, and so they're going up the cliff of insanity. And so Andre the Giant, like during the scene, would like right before the scene would happen, would just like pet him on the head and like tell him like, "Don't worry, I will take care of you. Don't worry."
Yeah.
And he would like completely like calm the guy down. And
That
it's
would
just,
calm me down.
How do you not fall in love with him?
I know.
That's such a
I know.
good
I think
answer.
I really want to know at what point did William Goldman, was he aware of Andre the Giant as a wrestler? Because I think Goldman used to watch wrestling. Like he knew who Andre the Giant was and he wanted him to be Fezzik. But I'm like, but did you write this book before you knew that Andre existed? Because I feel like he's just so perfectly cast.
He is. I feel like a lot of them are perfectly cast, and
Yeah.
especially in this section, which we're going to really, I'm super excited to dive into. I think because the dialogue is very similar to what's
Yes.
in the movie, and it works so well. I feel like, I mean, maybe he was also a Broadway fan too with Mandy Patinkin, because Mandy Patinkin,
Possibly.
I wonder how much, because they feel so perfectly cast. Those three especially so far. The others not so much, but those
Yeah, I
three
agree.
are perfect.
Paul,
And they're my favorite parts of.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think as
Oh,
an adult, they're my favorite.
They
parts
are,
of
for
the-
me too.
yeah.
Paul, if you haven't done it already, it sounds like you already started. Track down a bunch of like behind the scenes bonus features, bonus material of the movies. It's probably on YouTube. That one you described, I think, is an interview with Patinkin talking about when they were getting hoisted up for that thing. But hearing him talk about the movie and the role, like hearing all the actors talk about that stuff is really, really special, and it's really cool. But so I want to ask you too, now that you've seen the movie, has that influenced your reading of the book? Are you hearing the actors? Are you picturing them? Or is it still what you had sort of envisioned before you watched the movie?
It 100% alters the voices of everything I read. There's
Cool.
no way you can't reread The Cliffs of Insanity and not hear that voice.
Yeah.
Hurry
Or
up!
just hear Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no way not to.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Well, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Just keep us posted on what you think of the book for the rest of the time. But thanks
Yeah.
so much for joining us.
And if you've got kids in your life, have them watch the movie so that you really will make a fan. Because we appreciate you as an adult, as a 29-year-old, checking out the movie. But like you said, it's perfect for kids, and
Yeah.
you got to get them hooked when they're young, and then they
Yeah.
love it.
Awesome. Thanks so much,
Thank
Paul.
you for booing me into watching it, because
Yeah, we probably did do that. Sorry, but you're welcome. But sorry.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thanks, Paul.
thank you.
Bye, Paul. Bye, Thrash Odin. What a cool fucking name.
Such a cool name.
Thrash Odin. That's
know.
great. All right. Bye for that.
Okay, let's talk about this section because this is my favorite part in the movie. As much as I do agree with Maud that the intro and the introduction to Buttercup and Wesley, and I love their dynamic, and I love when I was younger, the thing, and I feel like I have a if you guys haven't been able to glean this by now, I have I have a bit of an oddball sense of humor and a dark sense of humor. And I feel like this, along with a couple other things, we talked about Hitchhiker's Guide and Eddie Izzard and sort of this like very dry humor. But this is another one that's like, I feel like the part of me that really loves Curb Your Enthusiasm and sometimes my inner monologue that I maybe wouldn't say out loud but is being really sassy comes from this book a little bit, and that this scene through the Vicini part, which is we're going to read next time, is some of my favorite. And I said the story last how I used to quote it with my dad.
You think that I think. You think that I think. No, Dad.
I'm seeing him for Father's Day this Sunday, so I'm going to try to get him to do a recording.
Good, that's great.
It's just like the most dad thing ever. But so we start the section with another section that it's section 5 of chapter 5, the announcement. No, 4, the preparations, and it's just skipping it. It skips through the whole chapter. And
that's what I love.
I loved that, and I love that we don't have to go through that because it's similar to maybe less Jane Austen, but some of the sort of 18th century, 19th century novels that you read in high school, and some are good and some are boring. But they just are. But those make better movies.
Lady Amphy's got a great comment. I'm going to keep reading without seeing the movie again until I'm finished with the book to give another opinion.
Ooh,
awesome. And if you want to Skype in, just like Paul did, just like Thrash Odin did, that'd be great. Thrash Odin says, Thrash Odin was my World of Warcraft handle. I wanted something that sounded tough but smart.
Oh my God, I love that.
That's pretty good.
You totally nailed it.
Yeah, but please continue, Richard. You had a
well, I was going to say a controversial thing, which is that I think that you'll like this. I do think that Jane Austen books make better movies than they do books.
Really?
Yes, because they're kind of the same story over and over again.
Sure. I got to read some Jane Austen now. I don't think I've ever read a Jane Austen book.
Well,
no, I got to read a Jane Austen book and then watch the movie, or vice versa.
Yeah, I read all.
So we have 2 examples of the movie's better than the book: Princess Bride and any Jane Austen novel that was made into a book.
Pride and Prejudice. You have to watch the miniseries. They're good, but I read a bunch of them, and then I later took a college class where I read all of them, and then you start to see them. But
gotcha.
I like that we skip over that because a lot of times when you have something set in a period piece, sometimes it works, sometimes those details are important for what's going on, if it's an intrigue or whatever, but sometimes it's like, I don't need to know about how you learned how to curtsy. You just tell me that you learned how to curtsy and we'll get to the rest of the story.
Do you think William Goldman was a little commentary on Jane Austen, maybe?
I don't think he's read Jane Austen.
Oh, ooh, nice.
I don't
Shade.
feel like he likes or understands women very much, which is fine.
I agree.
Which is fine.
It's fine.
It's something that happens.
He's a successful Hollywood screenwriter of a couple decades ago. He was, he wrote Butch Cassidy
really
and the
great
Sundance Kid.
movies starring Robert Redford that are mostly about men, and I love them and they're great.
That's
but
great. From a different time.
It's a different time. You can always. I love a lot of books where if you looked at them now, you'd be like, oh no, that's.
Oh yeah, me too.
And movies, comedy, any comedy from any time before like this year.
Yeah.
Really is just like.
It's true.
I was watching Anchorman last night or the night before, and I was like, even this, I feel like some of this stuff just would not fly. But I think that it's fine that he doesn't get women, but no, I don't think he's read Jane Austen.
Java Bookie Girl says, I read a bunch of Jane Austen. I've never actually seen a Jane Austen movie. Ducks from Rachel.
No.
Pride and Prejudice is
the
thing I'm hearing.
Never be afraid.
If you've never seen a movie, that's the best. You get to see a movie.
Yeah, it's exciting. Watch, I would say, the first one. Well, technically you have, because if you've ever seen Clueless or 10 Things I Hate, no, not 10 Things I Hate About You. That's
Shakespeare.
But Clueless is Emma, but I would start with the BBC Pride and Prejudice.
Do you say Shakespeare because of Scary Movie?
Yes.
When I think it's Regina King, she's like, "Ooh, honey, I'm in the theater. I'm watching Shakespeare in Love." I think that was the funniest shit ever.
Yes.
That's so great. That's why I say Shakespeare. That's why I say it too, and it helps me spell it. I
It's
remember having, I'm like,
it's a phonetic thing.
Shakespeare. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Thanks for picking up on that.
When she was watching Shakespeare in Love, it was so great.
That's true. You could watch Bridget Jones' Diary. So we get into this section, and okay, number one, I did not. I'm gonna do it next time. I forgot to listen to the score, but I heard it in my head the entire time. And
my love is like a storybook story, but it's as real as the feelings I feel. Dun, dun. It's as real as the feelings I feel. My love is like a story. Just over and over again.
yeah,
That's all those lyrics are.
Or even okay, we just gotta go in order because this is too much. So
It's too much.
It's too much. So let's start.
I have sections I want to read, so
Oh, good.
I'll just go. I got one queued up, Rachel.
Okay, go.
I got
You
one
go.
queued up. First of all, I
Where's
was
it
super
from?
excited the first time we saw the name Fezzik.
Yep.
And William Goldman also let us know, for that was his name. So I really like the description of Fezzik and his strength. He's climbing up the cliffs of insanity. He's holding on to Buttercup, Inigo, Wallace Shawn's character, the Sicilian.
Vicini?
Vicini, thank you. And the Man in Black's chasing him. And
What
so
page
this is
in our
page
edition?
111.
Oh.
With that, the Turk began to climb. It was at least 1,000 feet, and he was carrying the 3, but he was not worried. When it came to power, nothing worried him. Nothing worried him. When it came to power, nothing worried him. When it came to reading, he got notched in the middle of his stomach, and when it came to writing, he broke out in a cold sweat. And when addition was mentioned, or worse, long division, he always changed the subject right away. But strength had never been his enemy. He could take the kick of a horse on his chest and not fall backward. He could take a 100-pound flour sack between his legs and scissor it open without thinking. He once held an elephant aloft using only the muscles in his back. But his real might lay in his arms. There had never, not in 1,000 years, been arms to match Fezzik's, for that was his name. The arms were not only gargantuan and totally obedient and surprisingly quick, but they were also, and this is why he never worried, tireless. If you gave him an axe and told him to chop down a forest, his legs might give out from having to support so much weight for so long, or the axe might shatter from the punishment of killing so many trees, but Fezzik's arms would be as fresh tomorrow as today.
I like that section a lot. Good writing.
It is
Good
really
writing.
good writing, and I think because
That's that whimsical shit, that shit you read to a kid.
Yes.
That felt like that's the part you read to a
it
kid.
teaches you, there's such a rhythm to it, and I think as a reader and an editor, the language,
Girl, all right, throw it around. All right.
I mean, that's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Is to I used to write a lot more, and I still like to write, but I said it like that because I was gonna say writer, and then I was like, I don't really write that much anymore.
You're a writer, but editor, writer.
But
yeah.
I like that more, and reading the words because of the lyrical rhythm of them, and when it's really good, it flows, and it teaches. I think when you're read stuff as a child, it teaches you to think
Yes.
that way. It teaches you
Yes,
to
it
speak
helps.
that way. I think that any strength I had in school in English was from my
Being read to
parents
as a
reading
child.
to me
That's
when I was
awesome.
little, and I started reading really young because I was exposed to it so much. And I think that the fact that this part, which is my favorite in the movie, is so similar to and expanded upon in the book, which is the original, I think that's where you find really the strength of his writing.
Agreed.
It's less the romance, it's less the lady, it's this biting wit and this storytelling that's kind of weaving itself through that.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Quick comment. Stephanie Reyka says, first time for Alpha Book Club for me. This is great. I love this book,
Yay!
so I had to tune in.
Oh, yay!
Welcome, Stephanie. Welcome, Stephanie.
Let us know what you're thinking of the book and the movie. Well, you know the movie, but let us know what you think so far.
Yeah, movie opinions are optional, but of course always welcome. But let's talk about this book.
Yeah.
Rachel, what continue? You were saying
So
it finds its strength.
yeah, and I think this first section we get to meet Buttercup the princess. We skip through all of the the BS to get to. Sadly, there's no booing in this section, although I guess that comes later when she's Thank you. When she's dreaming about her wedding day. But she.
Oh, we heard some booing in this section.
But it's a different section.
Yeah,
It's the Fezzik section.
Which was so funny, but I'm like, I think that's why they kept some booing in the script. I think that's why William Goldman was like,
he moves it around.
Yeah.
You can tell what he's really loyal to in the book because
What he
especially if
thinks
you
is funny.
know it. Yeah, and if
Yeah.
you know the movie the way that
Yeah.
both of us do.
I was just picturing an old lady booing at
Yeah.
Fezzik. I'm like, oh man,
Oh, it's the same lady. Why is she
Get outta here,
moving
old lady.
all over the world?
Boo!
Why is she following him around?
Yeah.
But I heard the score, not just the romantic one, but the trumpeting when she comes out on the balcony when she walks out.
The sword fight, the duel.
The sword fight, which is so good.
Yeah.
The boat scene, where why sharks versus eels? Do you think it was a technical thing on the set of the film?
I bet you they couldn't get big fake sharks, but
Yeah.
they could get crappy fake
Yeah,
eels. So
just-
they're like, well, we have eels.
And we just have a puppet guy.
Yeah. And they're
Yeah.
like, all right, that's fine.
I like the eels. It's weird.
It's cheesy to me.
Yeah.
It's cheesy in the best way. It's low budget. It's cheesy. You know, it's like it's Dr. Evil wanting sharks with laser beams attached to their heads, but all they could
Frickin'
get is
laser
mutated sea
beams.
bass. What's funnier? Mutated sea bass.
Yeah.
Like that's I love that it's eels. It's great.
I love that, and I love that I was sort of lamenting that we didn't have the grandfather character in this.
Yeah.
But then we get that scene, and I was like,
Yes.
that's where it comes from.
Exactly.
That
That's where it
scene
comes
right
from.
there is like the first moment where I was like, okay, this is the inspiration. Because you can have
totally
the
read that in Peter
intro,
Falk.
but
Yeah, totally, yeah.
But I love that scene, and I love there's a very eerie score as the boat's rocking, and he goes, it's just a
Oh no, I know I was listening to it as
yeah.
I read it. I know.
waterfront through it, when he's like he's going for, and the lines in here, he's going for a pleasure cruise through eel infested
Yeah.
waters, and you
shark-infested
hear
waters,
that and the moon's on the
Yeah.
lake. So I heard all of that, and when they're climbing, you can hear the tension building in the score. I could hear that. I heard everything in their voices. I know the cadence of how they say it. So this part was really fun because it
So
was
fun.
so similar. But
fun.
the greatest thing
Thrash
I
Odin
think,
says eels are scarier than sharks. I don't know. Maybe if
they're
it's like electric
creepier,
eels.
maybe.
They're creepier. They're
Because
Ursula
sharks is
creepy.
like one and done. You're
You're
dead.
dead. You're dead.
For
Sharks
the
will kill
most
you.
part, but eels, you thrash around a little bit.
I'm honestly
was
not
for
afraid
Maud.
of you. I feel like eels. I'm like, eels don't attack people. I don't think sharks. Anyway, that's a dumb thing. Whatever.
They're
Yeah.
scary in the. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't blame Fred Savage. I
Yeah.
love that you included that detail of him like balling up the
It's the
blankets.
best. I'm not nervous. I may be concerned. I was maybe a little concerned, but that's different. Oh, okay, concerned. It's the best. It's the sweetest thing in the world.
But I love that we get the background on in this section, and I can't wait. Do we get one for Vicini?
I hope so.
We have
oh
to, right?
man.
Because I mean, rule of
Ooh,
threes.
yeah.
All of this, they're
I would
building
love
up
to have
that.
a background of Vicini. I feel like we got a little bit because of when he came into Fezzik and Inigo's backstory.
Yeah.
Where he was introduced, I was like, okay, I think I'm getting a little bit of Vicini being this criminal mastermind that he thinks he is, and I think it's great. But we might.
Yeah, I love
yeah.
that we. So I know your favorite part was Inigo getting to know his papa.
Yes.
So
I
what
have
do you
a-
think of that section?
I will read you what I thought of that
Okay,
section,
all
Rachel.
right, okay.
I'm gonna read it.
Okay.
No, but overall I love that section, and I thought it was even stronger than Fezzik's backstory because Princess Bride to me is Inigo Montoya and everybody else.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
I could cry at
Yeah.
how much I love the character of Inigo Montoya. Like tears are welling in my eyes right now. The moment where he says, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. Like that moment, if I ever needed to make myself cry, I could just think about it. It's so epic and it's so classic that you think, I'm sure that it's been in other movies, this revenge looking for a man who killed my father, and yet there's no better example than the pure essence of Manny Patinkin's character, Inigo Montoya, in The Princess Bride. So he's my all-time. So to actually meet his father and everything, and here's my favorite section. This was really great. Perhaps another cup, thank you. Then big, why won't you? Inigo hurried to refill their cup so as to never miss a word. He knew that they had been brought up together, had known each other over 60 years, had never not loved one another deeply, and it thrilled him when he could hear them arguing. That was the strange thing. Arguing was all they ever did. Why?
My fat friend asks me why. He sits there on his world-class ass and has the nerve to ask me why. Yesti, come to me sometime with a challenge. Once, just once, ride up and say, Domingo, I need a sword for an 80-year-old man to fight a duel. And I would embrace you and cry, yes, because to make a sword for an 80-year-old man to survive a duel, that would be something. Because the sword would have to be strong enough to win, yet light enough for it not to tire his weary arm. I would have to use my all to perhaps find an unknown metal, strong but very light, or devise a different formula for a known one, mix some bronze with some iron and some air in a way ignored for 1,000 years. I would kiss your smelly feet for an opportunity like that, fat Yesti. But to make a stupid sword with stupid jewels in the form of stupid initials so some stupid Italian can thrill his stupid mistress? No, for that I will not do. That is the best.
It is the best, and I will tell you why I think that is the best. It is because,
love it.
As a character, Inigo Montoya is pure honor and loyalty.
God damn it. Yes, he is.
He is, you feel it, and it's Mandy Patinkin, who's amazing. I love Mandy Patinkin so much.
Yeah.
As a big musical theater fan, they didn't ruin Les Mis the movie for me because it did that to itself. But but
Rachel shade.
but they ruined it further by saying, imagine the Russell Crowe character played by Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get it out of my head.
Yeah.
And yeah, right? Thank you. And he's so great, and he is honorable, he is loyal to his father, he is loyal to his friends. He's a good man.
And let me just say really quick 2 things about Mandy Patinkin that need to be said. Number one, he said that at the premiere of the movie, he was watching this and sitting next to his wife, and he started crying and tearing up. And she asked him either afterwards or right then, she's like, why are you crying? And he said, I just never thought I would be a part of a movie like this because of how swashbuckling the movie is. Like, it's so great. Oh, no, you're about to cry right now, Rachel. If you don't already know this story. Second thing I got to say about him. He said that he lost his father to cancer in real life and used that for the character of Inigo. So that you're about to have tears right now. So he was saying that the day that they shot the scene where he went after the Count and finally, did the thing, he said he was walking around the beautiful countryside speaking to his father saying, I'm going to make this right. I'm going to make this right. And when I can choke up right now just thinking about it. And when he actually, when he said, promise me all of the wealth and everything in the world. And he's like, anything you want and more. And when he said, I want my father back, you son of a bitch, and did it, Manny said that in an interview, he was like, when I did that, it felt like for a moment I had my father back.
Oh my God.
And everything was right with the world, and it just helped his character. And it's the best. It's so great. It's real. That's real. Let's bring that in. Here we go. I'm so sorry, Rachel. Here you go. Oh. Woo! Whoa. And I tell you, I'm a sucker for father-son stories, so that hits me in a part of my heart that's it's amazing. And then, really, that is in this character in this book. It really is.
Well, and
it really is.
You feel it in his I mean, oh man, I'm gonna be a wreck when I'm watching all this because I had the VHS and I've watched it since then, but maybe on Netflix or something. But I had the VHS growing up, so until I went away, I kept my VHS player at least until I went away to college.
Called the VCR, Rachel.
Oh right, yeah.
Those are called VCRs.
I remember. Yeah. I had one in my room. That's how I watched all my tapes. But I used to record a lot of Are You Afraid of the Dark and just watch it on a loop. Explains a lot. But I've never watched the special features.
Oh, dude, Blu-ray's where it's at.
And I'm gonna lose it. But the thing that I liked about this was that you see where that comes from. You see this honor in his father, and it's like no bullshit.
Yes.
And you're like, okay.
When the Count shows up and he goes, and he's like, no, you don't deserve this sword. No. I was like, this guy is the best, the father.
I was wondering because
Domingo.
I feel like in the film, correct me if I'm wrong, he tries to just take the sword without paying for it, right?
Yeah, correct.
And so I really like this detail. I've got smudge tears on my glasses.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's a good cry. It's a good. That's what good art and movies and books are supposed to do.
Yeah.
And but I feel like this was even more powerful because you get to see that it wasn't about that for him.
Yeah.
You get to see. I love the intro and how they introduce them and say he loved him. Can't say why. He was kind of stoic and very serious.
Yeah, because he had like a shitty life, like poor, like all this stuff.
Because he
loved his father.
Because you love your parents.
Gah.
You love your parents.
Ugh.
And we've gone through it in other books where it's like sometimes your parents aren't what you need them to be, and sometimes they are, and you lose them. And that's this story, and it's so you can see Mandy Patinkin in all of this, but then you also get this very real character that you're like, okay, that's where that comes from, and this makes sense. And that's a great adaptation where you don't have this scene, but all of that is distilled into Inigo.
I agree. But for me, I think that even with Mandy's performance, this still like enhances it.
Yeah.
And even just knowing how Mandy felt
Absolutely.
about it. T-Boy says, I'm going to be rooting for him even harder next time I see the movie. Like, you do, because he's doing it, and like you think about the actor, and but even that, what that actor went through is relatable to what this character's going through, even though he's a fictional character, and it's relatable to what we all go through.
Well,
because we all lose people in our lives. And ideally, we all lose our parents and not the other way around, ideally. And your parents would agree. It's like, yeah, that's the way it should go.
Yeah.
Java Book Geek Girl says that she lost her dad 2 years ago next week, and that Inigo's part of the story is hitting her really hard. And it's just, I think that's a beautiful thing, because I think it's something that every human being goes through, and it's relatable, and it speaks to the power of this really simplistic character storyline, but damn it, it's effective. It's so effective. And so and it feels good to read that character, maybe because I've seen the movie and I know how this thing ends, but it feels good to read what he went through, knowing what's going to happen. I'm so rooting for Inigo, I'm so rooting for that.
And I love that he also wants that you can it's funny, you pick up things from your parents that you don't realize that you pick up from them. And he's only 10, 9 when he tried to fight the six-fingered man. And so he has that's not very much time in the scheme of growing up with your parents, but if you look at developmental psychology and all these things about how important a lot of those, especially the really, really early years, you learn before you're even speaking that much, all of that you pick up on. And he clearly, that like dedication and that perfectionism and that craving, he needs a challenge, we get to see in the sword fight where he's like, please, finally, someone give me that challenge. And that's exactly where we find out where it comes from, which is really nice. I really liked the sword fight scene as well, because that scene is so well choreographed in the film.
And in the book too. It's great.
And so there's a lot to live up to there, and it's really well written in the book where you can visualize it. And I feel like sometimes with stuff like that, you're like, I don't know, where's his foot going? What kind of jab is this?
Sure.
And there's a lot of language there. Did you pick a section from this one?
I didn't, but I just wanted to pick up that there's a lot of all of the defenses.
Yes.
That I think it's the coolest shit ever. I just think it's so great. Now he surprises you with Bonetti's attack. He uses the Agrippa defense. All of that stuff that we see a little bit of when Inigo as a young man goes back to Yesti. And he's like, let me know if I'm ready. And he was like, okay, and he sat in his chair because he's this big bloated guy. He's towards the tail end of his life.
I really connected with Yesti where he was like, never leave me again. I eat too much when I'm lonely. I was like, me too, Yesti.
Me too,
oh,
Yesti.
man.
Yesti queen,
yes.
So when he's going through all that, and then we see it in the actual, it cuts right to Inigo paced the cliff edge, fingers snapping. But when him and the man in black are going back and forth, they touched swords, and the man in black immediately began the Agrippa defense, which Inigo felt was sound considering the rocky terrain, for the Agrippa kept the feet stationary at first and made the chances of slipping minimal. Naturally, he countered with the capoferro, which surprised the man in black, but he defended well, quickly shifting out of Agrippa and taking the attack himself using the principles of Thibault. It's great. All of that stuff I love. Because I'm like, I don't know if this is real or made up, but I buy it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
Sword
made up
techniques.
because we can't trust this guy.
Yeah,
but,
we can't trust him, Goldman.
He's a liar. But I really like that, again, and it's hard sometimes when we read a book, and just for everyone who's new, sometimes there's a film adaptation and we compare and contrast a little bit, but they're usually so different or so contained.
Yeah, true.
This one is so hard to not compare with the film so much, but
Even in the introduction, William Goldman said, if you're reading this book, odds are you've seen the film.
Yeah, it's
because
just,
he knew what impact that movie had. Yeah.
it's unavoidable. But one of the things that I like about this too is that, and I'm trying to think. Oh, here's a really good example. So if anyone who's has read The Girl on the Train, so thriller.
Nope, but I heard about the movie.
So there's a film adaptation as well. But if you read Gone Girl or saw the movie, like myself, and then read all of the other 2 books that Gillian Flynn wrote, which are really good if you like thrillers. But then everyone immediately, and this is me, and I still do it all the time, where I'm like, more thrillers like Gone Girl. What is like, like trying to find other books like that. And Girl on the Train is one of those. And the book is fun and it's good, but it's one of those books where a lot of it is internal monologue.
Yeah,
and it
how do you do that in
doesn't
a film?
translate
yep.
to film at all. And
many
if you
books have had the
cast
same
people who look super evil and they're the evil character, like maybe don't do that.
Yeah, I know.
But this one, I feel like a lot of the internal moments with Vicini, with
finds its way in there.
Fezzik, with Inigo, all of the things that they're thinking as they're in the boat, as they're climbing up they end up as dialogue in a way that, because it's so cheeky and fun, it flows
works
really well.
Yeah.
And I think that
Mandy
with
Patinkin
anything
saying,
else,
who are you?
yeah,
I must know. Like all of that stuff. It's great. It's great.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And then we have poor Fezzik, and I like that they include the rhyming, because that's also just classic.
Anybody want a peanut?
Well, I'll be dead.
Yeah.
But his was a sad story.
Absolutely.
He's a 9-year-old who's like
A
beating up.
21-year-old, yeah.
That is.
Yeah, I really felt for him.
I think when your body betrays you when you're young, which everyone goes through it in some way or another, because it's terrible to be a teenager and everything goes wrong. But in different ways, everyone has a different thing. But I remember when I sprouted up really fast. I grew 5 inches in one summer. And it was very painful and super awkward. And I was all like...
Physically painful?
Yeah. Oh yeah, really bad. And but I was like all elbows and teeth basically. And when I was reading that, and he was like, "I feel like a little person, but I'm so big," I was like, "Oh no, that's really
Oh no."
I felt really. I mean, this is a million times worse. But I was not forced to fight, but I was forced to play basketball.
Really?
Yes.
That's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
It's really exaggerated and fantasy-esque, because he's a giant, and they literally make him a giant. They make him over 7 feet tall, 400 pounds. All of these things that are so impossibly big. The fact that Andre the Giant was born and was casted this is like so pitch perfect. And the movie definitely cheats some certain shots and everything to make him even larger than life.
Sure.
But Andre himself was just larger than life. But even despite the movie, the book does all that stuff, but it's still relatable, because of the fact that they make him a kid, because of the fact that what he goes through with his parents, where they're like, "Listen, we're going to use your natural talents and we're going to get rich and famous, okay?" And he's like, "I don't want to anymore." It's like, that's show moms and dads. Like there's so many different angles to kind of approach Fezzik's backstory that it all works. And you said you were forced to play basketball? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Not by my parents, thankfully, but so, I don't know how.
Some coach
I don't
saw you
know
and was
how
like,
it happened.
"You tall girl, come here."
Tall does not equal coordination. I will tell you that right now. But
Good to know.
It's one of those things that I think, again, these things are some of them are universal, where you feel out of place, or you don't feel like you measure up in certain ways, or you've lost something, or you're trying to be perfect, or you think you're the smartest person in the room. To your potential downfall in all of these cases. I think it's interesting to see what people pick up on these things, even when they're absurd.
Okay, I'm gonna make you cry again.
Oh no. Okay.
In the book, Fezzik at the end of his section.
Oh no, anything about Andre the Giant is gonna make me cry, because he's such a sweetheart.
Fezzik said that he wanted to stay with Vicini because he didn't want to be alone, because he lost his parents, right? The character of Fezzik. So he's like, anything that Vicini says, I'm gonna do.
I'm gonna be mad at you, aren't I?
I'm so sorry. Andre the Giant said about the movie. Somebody asked him, and I think it may have been, again, Mandy, talking about the movie, the behind the scenes. You got to find some special features on YouTube, y'all. They're so good. He was saying that, he was asking Andre the Giant, how did he like working on the movie? And he said that he loved it and he said that he felt like I guess he kind of became like one of the guys as they were filming the movie the weeks past. He loved it because nobody looked at him funny. He wasn't like different. He was like just part of the cast, and that was his character, and that he was an actor on this movie, and that is so Fezzik. Do you know what I mean? The fact that Andre the Giant he loved the experience of shooting this movie because people didn't look at him funny while they were shooting this movie. Is like that's Fezzik in a nutshell. Fezzik just being like, I don't want to fight. I just want to be normal. I just want to be accepted. He's a sweetheart. The gentlest giant. It's so sweet.
I'm not gonna cry.
Okay, good. Not as bad as Hector. I make Rachel cry Navarro. No, not as
It's
bad.
not
I wanted to make
hard.
sure she had the tissues nearby. This has been an emotional episode. It's a roller coaster.
It is.
Not as bad as
Java Book Geek Girl is a fellow tall person and concur. Yeah, it's hard when you grow super fast. Your body doesn't catch up. Yeah, it's one.
surrounded by tall people. This is amazing. This is great.
I think, and it's just funny because I feel like it's one of, like when you talk to parents and they're like, there's no right way to raise a kid. Like you could be strict and they'll hate you. You could be lenient and they'll, you can take human beings, especially kids, are fragile, but human beings are fragile, emotional creatures.
Yeah.
And so something that affects someone one way will affect another way, but we all can identify with not feeling like enough or not feeling right. And that's all of art and movies and TV and literature is those characters having those pain points and suffering through those things. And so even when we're reading a thing that we're saying like, this isn't sweet enough and this isn't, we can still find those moments. And I think especially Inigo and Fezzik's relationship too is one of the hearts of the story, and I'm excited to see them. And you can feel the tenderness in how they talk to each other here, and they kind of band against Vicini, who just so deserves what's coming to him. It's beautiful.
I love that William Goldman, and I think I felt this when I was a kid. The first time I watched the movie, I was like, did they not kill the bad guys, Inigo and Fezzik, because they're so sweet and we love them? Like, they're bad guys that get eliminated by the Man in Black, but the Man in Black finds excuses to not kill these two characters. When he's like an Dread Pirate Roberts is like an effective guy, right? As a kid, I remember thinking like, they're good guys, they're not bad guys, because that's what how the movie presents them. I wonder if William Goldman started writing these characters and was like, no, I love Inigo, I love Fezzik, they're going to be heroes. They're bad guys, they're bad guys now, they're kidnappers now. They're going to be heroes, but Vicino, I'm absolutely going to kill Vicini off. Like he's going to get what's coming to him. I wonder if even William Goldman knew like the purity of these characters.
I do think so, because I think if we're looking at the way that they're taking down the royal characters and eventually taking Buttercup a little bit down a peg and being like, why did you go?
The way he
Why
writes
would
them
you
versus
do
the way
this?
he writes Inigo and Fezzik, absolutely.
They are the heroes because they are victims of their circumstance who end up getting caught in this like under the spell of this manipulative, who I'm sure we'll find out why he became that way, but he manipulated them into thinking that they needed him when he needs them, and he preyed on their insecurities the way that people do in showbiz.
Hollywood. This is all about Hollywood, y'all. Okay? Inigo is about a guy who's he fell in love with the idea of Hollywood and movies from his father. His father dies. He's like, I'm going to go make a good, creative movie. And the studios are like, no. And then Fezzik.
Josh Trank?
Yeah. What's that? Josh Trank? Maybe not. No. And then Josh Trank. And then Fezzik is a guy in Hollywood who's like, he's super handsome and always gets typecast as a certain thing. He's like, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I'm an actor. Figured it out. That's what William Goldman's doing, you guys. It's Hollywood commentary.
Before we wrap up, I will say Wisdom says, we don't know that Dread Pirate Roberts ever killed anyone. I'm really excited to see what book Wesley goes through, because if we are getting an expanded version of everyone's backstory, maybe we get that one is really well told in the film from his point of view, but maybe we get to actually see it in this. So that's really exciting.
I would love it.
So your homework for next week is to read up to page 276 in our edition, which is when Inigo and Fezzik go to find Wesley, and it ends with the line, "That's what I meant." I love how cryptic these are. When I saw it last week, I was like, what part could that be? So it ends with the line, "That's what I meant."
276.
I'm very excited. I'm going to keep holding off to watch the movie until I'm done. I'm going to stick to that, even though every time I finish this, I'm like, I'm going to go watch it right now.
276. Is there? That's what I meant on 276.
Aaron, they're questioning your decision here. 276 is there a line? That's what I meant.
Is it 267?
267. Try that, bitch.
No, I trust Aaron.
I trust Aaron too.
We'll tweet it out
I'm not
if it's
trusting
not
my own
right.
self, who's got a half a glass of wine in me.
Yeah, I know. Half a glass. Also, make sure that you send us photos of you reading or watching. A lot of you are really good about that, but it's always so fun to see where you're reading, where you're watching. If you're having coffee, if you're having wine. Someone was drinking Fireball in the chat. And don't forget, we're going to dress up for the last week of the month. No costumes are set. I haven't decided what I'm going to be. I mean, we all know Maud's going to be Buttercup.
You're
so
gonna be the Dread Pirate Roberts, right?
I don't know. Maybe I'm going to pick a really funny one. I have to look when I watch the
Boo!
movie. When I watch the movie, I'm going to try to figure out what I have that I could put together.
Yeah, we said maybe you could be the impressive clergyman. Mowage.
I could be. I mean,
Okay.
the possibilities are truly endless.
I gotta find an Inigo costume.
Yeah, you have to do
Shit.
it. I'll probably do Man in Black because I probably own enough of that, but all black attire. But
Yeah.
I could do something really silly, so we'll see. Don't forget, we're also on Goodreads. I love Goodreads; it's my favorite thing. So search Alpha Book Club. Come discuss with us. Send us your book recommendations. We don't do a ton of like pulpy thrillers on this show, but I read them like
Ooh.
on the reg. So
Yeah,
if you
were
have
saying
any that
read
you
one
like,
in a weekend. You read a thriller in a day.
I just sit down and read them. So if you have any that I should read, send them to me. If you're interested in joining us on the show, you can call in, you can dial in so we can see your beautiful faces. If you haven't seen the movie yet and you're going to watch it, we want to talk to you. Let Courtney know on Twitter @JoinTeamAlpha, and she will help move that process forward. We always have new books to read. We're going to be voting for the July book before we know
man,
it.
I know.
Like, it's coming up very soon, so send us your recommendations. The Golden Compass to @Nerdist, Geek and Sundry, or join Team Alpha with the hashtag Alpha Book Club. We love you guys so much. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye.